Chapter 51. I thought you knew, Matt said from a few feet inside the room. He looked as if he'd known all along. You knew. Nick turned and looked at him with a frown. Yeah, I touched her a few weeks back and I knew there were two of them. I thought you knew and were just keeping it to yourselves. We had no idea. Did you know there was one of each? Nick tilted his head as he waited for Matt to answer. No, Matt shook his head. Just that there were two. Matt watched the two women, each holding a baby. Their attention was focused on the tiny beings in their arms. Seeing Alex cooing over little Samuel reawakened his desire for children of his own. Hey, Nick tapped his arm with one hand as he walked by. Come talk for a minute. With one last glance at Alex, Matt followed him. He had expected to go into the living room, but instead, Nick turned into his office. Yes, sir? Matt realized it was something important when the clan leader closed the door behind him. No need to be quite so formal. Nick moved around him and sat behind the desk. He waved one hand at the chairs on the other side. Sit. All right. Matt sat, wondering what this was about. How are things going with Alex? Great, I'm working on getting things unpacked and I've got some work scheduled for next week. Good. Nick leaned back in his chair, elbows resting on the arms as he brought his fingers together in front of him. Any problems with Randy? No problems. I talked to him before I went back to Denver. He was concerned that we would seal our mating without getting married. I assured him that's not where my intentions are headed. He told me to take care of her, and I plan to. Good to hear, Nick said with a slow nod. I've been a little preoccupied with Rebecca and now the babies, and I'm afraid I've not paid as much attention to the clan as I should. He looked up and met Matt's gaze. I assume your Khan gave you permission to leave up there? He did, Matt said with a single nod. He was a little concerned that I'd be as inactive here as I was there. I'll admit, I was pretty solitary for the last couple years, but I told him with JV and Steve here, I didn't think I'd be allowed to hide away here like I did there. Matt gave the other man a wry smile. Still, he said to have you call him after I joined the clan. I think he wants to check in and make sure I'm doing all right. Nick pursed his lips and thought for a moment. I can call him once you've officially joined the pack. When are you wanting to do that, by the way? I'm ready right now, if that's all right with you. Matt didn't hesitate. No problem. Nick stood and Matt followed suit. Do you swear your loyalty and word of bond to the White Mountain Channel until we release you from said bond? I swear. Accepted. Nick held out one hand. Matt gripped the other man's hand firmly. He knew shaking his new clan leader's hand would seal the bond. A familiar wave of warmth washed through his body. He'd felt the same several years before when he joined the Denver clan. Something was different though, maybe it was having so many people he cared about here. He felt more at home here. Was that you? Alex's voice whispered through his head. Yes, it's official now. I'm here to stay. He sent back. Thank you, he said aloud. Welcome to the White Mountain Channel. Be warned, though I may start hiring out your mediation services. You did a good job for us. Matt chuckled. It's kind of what I already do with the translating. It's a little different when everyone speaks the same language, but not too much. And while my services don't come cheap, I'd happily give a cut to the clan on services booked through them. Agreed. Nick rolled his shoulders and tilted his head from one side to the other, as if stretching stiff muscles. Let's go see how the girls are doing. He opened the door and headed for the bedroom. Matt sensed that Nick was eager to get back to his children. He knew the feeling. Later that evening, as they sat in their living room watching TV, Matt couldn't forget the picture of Alex holding a tiny baby in her arms. He tried to put it out of his mind, but it refused to stay gone. She was laying on the couch next to where he sat, her head resting on his leg. He tried to keep from thinking about the possibility that she could already be pregnant, but the thought was running in circles inside his head. "Hey!" Alex's voice drew him from his thoughts. He looked down to find her watching him. "Hey you!" He couldn't help the smile that started to spread across his face. "Have you thought about sealing our mating?" She looked away. "I mean, I'm not trying to push or anything, I was just curious." He ran the fingers of one hand through her hair as he watched her for a second. "I have thought about it and I thought about bringing it up, but I didn't want you to feel like I was rushing things either." Alex laughed and the sound vibrated through him, sending a wave of warmth through him. "I guess we were both worried about how the other will react." Her hair was soft and silky between his fingers. "I guess we were. The only thing holding me back is not knowing if you're ready or not." He ran a finger along the side of her cheek. "I don't want to rush you. I know the idea of committing to someone again after Connie hasn't been easy for you." He felt a sad smile curve his lips. "It's been difficult. But she wouldn't want me to be alone. She'd want me to be happy again, to have a family. My heart has been ready for a while. It's just taken my head a little longer to catch up. But I don't want to plan it either, if you know what I mean." The words rushed out, as if they were hard to say, and she had to get them out before she chickened out. "No, I get it. Sealing a mating is a special thing that has to be done when the moment is right. It can't be planned any more than who you fall in love with." He continued to run his fingers through her hair. A relieved smile curved her mouth. "I'm so glad you understand." Her hand came up and wrapped around his wrist for a moment, then she wove her fingers in between his. This felt good, it felt right. He could spend the rest of his life like this.